The first time I saw him, it was one of those bone-cutting January nights in Easton, Illinois, the kind where the wind doesn't just bite, it takes a chunk out of you. I was on the bus with my daughter Mia, grocery bag in my lap, just counting stops until home. She was the one who noticed him first, a man slumped against the wall outside a shuttered drugstore, snow piling on his shoulders like no one even cared. He was still breathing. "Mom, can he come live with us?" she asked, eyes wide, pressing her mittened hand against the glass. I told her to keep looking forward, that he was probably drunk, maybe dangerous. But she looked up at me with that stubborn little face and said, "You always tell me to help when no one else will." That one hit like a sucker punch. Next thing I knew, we were stepping off into the wind. Up close, he didn't look like the usual folks sleeping rough. His coat was fine wool, once the kind that comes with its own price tag shock, now stained and torn. His jaw had a couple days' worth of stubble, one eye bruised, and there was this half-empty bottle of something expensive sitting by his boot. I crouched down. "Sir, can you hear me?" His eyes opened, this piercing gray blue that even through the pain looked awake. He mumbled, "They took everything. Lied. Both of them." I didn't ask who yet. Just told him we could give him one night because otherwise he'd freeze before morning. Our apartment wasn't much third-floor walk-up with a heater that groaned like it had arthritis, but it was warm. Mia handed him a wet cloth for the cut on his temple, and he looked at her like he hadn't seen kindness in years. He told me his name was Jack, just Jack. But I noticed things. The cufflinks on his shirt tarnished but custom-made. The platinum tag under his collar engraved BRK. That wasn't just Jack territory. Over pancakes the next morning, I asked again. He finally sighed, set his fork down. Brandon Reed Kingsley. I froze. The Brandon Kingsley. The one who built Kingsley Dynamics, then vanished 9 months ago. I wasn't kidnapped, he said. I walked away. And then the story spilled his best friend and COO Daniel and the woman he planned to propose to, Julia, had been together for months behind his back. They used his grief after his father's death to paint him unstable, got the board to vote him out, then stripped everything. Before I could figure out if I believed him, a knock rattled our door, 3 sharp hits, not the neighbor kind. I checked the peephole tall man in a black coat holding a portfolio. Looking for someone, he said, sliding me a photo, Brandon in a suit. Never seen him in my life, I lied. When I turned back, Brandon was already in the bedroom watching the alley like it was a battlefield. He talked about disappearing again, but something in me, maybe foolish, maybe just tired of watching good people get chewed up, said, "If you're staying, you stop hiding." That's when he asked for help contacting an old ally. 3 days later, a package showed up, an old flip phone and a USB drive. Inside the drive, documents showing Daniel pushed through shady redevelopment deals Brandon had blocked. Evictions, demolitions, luxury condos in place of low-income housing with Brandon's forged signature all over them. He sat there staring at the screen like it was a loaded gun. "If I go to court, they'll spin it," he said. "So don't," I told him. "Tell it yourself." That night I filmed him at our kitchen table. No suit, no PR polish, just a man telling the world how the people he trusted gutted him and how their greed was hollowing out neighborhoods. We uploaded it to an anonymous channel. By morning, it had 50,000 views. By nightfall, 1 million. That's when the real trouble started. Black SUV parked across the street. Strange calls, a break-in while we were out. His laptop was gone, but his resolve was sharper. He started meeting with displaced families' nurses whose clinics had been shut down, veterans losing homes. Mia became his shadow, with a borrowed camera catching their stories. 1 month later, Brandon stood in front of a packed community center, reporters, neighbors, activists, and laid it all out: the forged signatures, the gentrification, The board's complicity. People gasped, some cried. And then he did something I didn't see coming, announced he was invoking a clause in the company's bylaws to demand reinstatement as CEO. I watched him walk into that boardroom like a man walking back into the house he'd been thrown out of. Daniel tried to smirk it off. "We can fix this together," he said, like they were just old buddies who had a spat. Brandon slid a folder across the table, endorsements from community leaders, shareholders, city officials. Clause 14B, proven misconduct by acting CEO. The vote wasn't even close. Daniel's face dropped for the first time I'd ever seen. Brandon leaned in, calm as you like. "This isn't revenge, Daniel, it's accountability." Taking the company back wasn't the victory lap you'd think. Brandon announced his first project, rebuilding the Easton Community Center into mixed-income housing and a clinic. That's when Daniel's allies, a shadowy investment firm called Carter and Lowell, came for us. Legal threats, smear campaigns, even an arson fire at the construction site. But by then, it wasn't just his fight. The neighborhood had claimed it. Volunteers showed up to scrub graffiti, re-pour concrete, repaint murals. Mia's Roots and History mural went up on the front wall, names of old families painted into the bricks. Carter and Lowell filed an injunction to stop the build. In court, Brandon told the judge, they think they're suing a building. They're trying to erase a neighborhood. The judge denied the injunction and recommended an investigation into the firm's filings. We walked out to a street full of people chanting, "We are still here." Opening day came 6 months later. The banner read, "Welcome home." Families poured in. Kids ran to the library, elders lined up at the clinic. Mia gave a speech about how a stranger became family, and a whole city decided not to be forgotten. Brandon just stood there smiling like a man who finally remembered who he was. It would have been the perfect ending if the threats had stopped. But they didn't. 3 nights later, someone smashed the center's glass doors and spray painted, "This isn't your city." They were wrong. Because by then, it wasn't just Brandon's city, it was ours. And there was no going back. So tell me, if someone took everything from you, would you disappear quietly? Or would you fight loud enough for the whole block to hear? Because I've seen what happens when people stop asking for permission to belong. Now I want to hear your take. Was Brandon right to come back swinging, or should he have walked away for good?